Once upon a time, there was a king and his wife, the queen. They had a daughter. However, when the sun set, she would turn into a monster, ogre. This must have been a curse or a hex. So her parents turned to the fairy godmother, and the fairy said to lock the young princess in a tower. In the tower, a handsome prince had to kiss her to break the curse. A difficult and dangerous journey awaited the prince. The handsome, slightly disheveled prince reached the tower, climbed up, opened the curtain, but there lay a wolf. The prince was surprised and asked, "Are you Princess Fiona?" The wolf said she was on her honeymoon. The prince didn't understand, with whom? It was, of course, Shrek and Fiona. The two of them shaved their beards and mustaches, groomed themselves, and sent the groom flying, metaphorically. Later, they had a picnic by the sea. In the evening, Shrek had the gnomes make a ring and put it on Fiona's finger. The two indulged in romance like humans. Then Shrek was caught, and Fiona chose their shadows. At night, they sat in the swamp and made a mud mask from the swamp mud. The fireflies in the jar were suffocating and dying from Shrek's wind, fart. Then the two yawned in the morning and came to Shrek's house. When they opened the door, Donkey was lying inside. Shrek and Fiona wanted to be alone. Donkey didn't want to leave. It seemed he and the dragon had a fight. For this reason, he decided to stay at their house. Shrek tricked him by saying, "Your ears need warmth, son," and Donkey left. But he came back because people from the palace had arrived. The palace staff announced that Fiona's parents were inviting their daughter and her handsome prince to a grand ball in the kingdom. Donkey excitedly said, "I'm coming too." But Shrek said, "We aren't going anywhere." Fiona looked at Donkey in surprise. Shrek said, "We'll be a laughingstock there, I don't want to be among people. For that reason, we are not going." But Fiona insisted, and they eventually set off on the journey. Pinocchio, the pigs, the mice, and the wolf stayed behind to watch the house. Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey traveled a long way. On the way, Donkey annoyed the couple by asking, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" At one point, Shrek started mocking Donkey. Donkey said, "That's it, I won't speak." Shrek said, "Oof," he finally shut his mouth. But then Donkey started making popping noises with his tongue. Finally, they reached the kingdom. On the way, Donkey talked to the people. This place was a regular big city. Everyone started following behind the carriage, saying, "The daughter and the prince have arrived." Thus, they reached the palace. When they got out of the carriage, everyone dropped their jaws in shock. Donkey said, "I'll go park the carriage," and ran away. So the couple walked down the red carpet towards Fiona's parents, and Shrek said, "I told you earlier we shouldn't have come." When the girl's father said, "A handsome prince was supposed to kiss Fiona," her mother replied, "Even if he isn't a handsome prince, our daughter seems happy with him." The father was muttering. Fiona claimed he helped rescue her from the donkey and the dragon. "Get away, you bad monster." Donkey ordered the rude waiter, "Bring me a bowl." At the table, Shrek drank the water meant for washing hands, thinking it was soup. The mother asked Fiona where they lived. Fiona said Shrek's land was a swamp. Shrek added, "Yes, yes, beautiful, forest, white squirrels." Suddenly Donkey exposed their lies, saying, "You're talking about the swamp, it stinks inside." When the mother brought up the topic of future grandchildren, the father and Shrek choked and sputtered, especially Shrek. "Green monsters, it's too early to talk about that," he replied to his mother-in-law. Shrek and his father-in-law got into an argument. Shrek wanted to escape saying, "Donkey needs the restroom," but they got stuck and decided to have a word. The king and Shrek made a mess of all the food. In the end, the two fought over a pig. It flew away and hit the fairy godmother, knocking her over. Fiona got upset and left for her room. When she went out to the balcony and cried, bubbles appeared in the sky, and in one of them, the fairy was singing. The fairy approached Fiona, popped out of her bubble, and said, "My delicate one, my little one, you've come to your senses. When Fiona asked who she was, the fairy replied, I am your fairy godmother, and saying, be stylish and forget your sadness, she started showing off her magic, furniture singing. However, Fiona didn't need any of this. Just then, Shrek and Donkey arrived, and Fiona introduced her husband Shrek to her fairy godmother. The fairy was shocked. Husband, you say? When did you manage that? Your husband was supposed to be someone else. Shrek told Fiona to pack up, saying they were leaving. The fairy gave Fiona her business card, saying, only one teardrop separates you from happiness. Shrek, angry, snatched it away, saying, yeah, happiness, happiness. The fairy got into her carriage and flew away. Fiona told her husband she wanted to live like a human, not like a monster. Shrek yelled at the fairy's puppy that was yapping and interrupting, silencing it, and announced that he was already a monster and would remain a monster forever. Fiona said, but I changed for you, and left, upset. Donkey said sarcastically, great job, Shrek. Shrek approached the door and heard Fiona crying behind it. The king's parents also heard their argument. While Shrek's mother-in-law said, this is Fiona's choice, the king was saying, he won't stop, he's a monster, he'll never improve. At that moment, the fairy was waiting for him outside. What's up, bro? We need to talk, she called him over, forced him into her carriage, and they talked. The fairy's son, Prince Charming, was also in the carriage. The mother and son pressured the king. The prince was angry, saying when he went to the tower to rescue Fiona, he found not the princess but the wolf, dressed as Little Red Riding Hood. The fairy was furious that Fiona had gotten married. When the king defended himself saying, it's not my fault, the prince was late himself, the fairy stopped the carriage and said, you are forcing me to do things I absolutely do not want to do. It turned out they had arrived at a fast food place. The fairy abandoned her diet because of the king. They received a toy for their order. Thus, they flew away from there. The fairy told the king that Fiona and Charming must be together, otherwise, the king would lose his happily ever after, and she left him there. Then at night, he disguised himself and came to a tavern. He was told he needed to find a bartender named Doris, the ugly stepsister. The person speaking was that very ugly stepsister, Doris. The king asked her for the address of a thug who kills monsters. Everyone got scared at the mention of a monster. The ugly stepsister, Doris, said a certain bad cat could fulfill such an order. The king went to that cat. His face couldn't be seen. Only his boots. The king offered him money, and the cat agreed. At night, Shrek couldn't sleep from worry. He saw human men everywhere. At one point, he picked up and read the diary Fiona wrote when she was little. Her mother had told her when she was little, when you grow up, handsome Prince Charming will rescue you from the tower. And on several pages of the diary, Mrs. Fiona Charming, was written. Shrek's nerves were shot from jealousy. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. It was the king. The father apologized and invited him hunting in the morning as a sign of reconciliation. So morning came, and Shrek and Donkey were walking. Suddenly a purring sound was heard, and Shrek thought it was Donkey's stomach. Donkey denied it. Suddenly, a cat in boots appeared. Donkey tried to persuade Shrek to run, saying, let's run, he has a weapon. But Shrek called him, it's just a kitten, kitty kitty kitty. The cat attacked him and mauled, scratched, him. Donkey said, I'll save my friend, no, I'll finish him, and attacked. Then the cat spat up a hairball and begged for forgiveness. Shrek grabbed him by the scruff of his neck and said, what do I do with this now? And the cat started begging for mercy. And he blurted out that the king had paid him for this job. Realizing that Fiona's father had ordered his assassination, Shrek let the cat go. Donkey tried to lift his spirits, saying, many people have wanted to kill you for a long time, don't worry. Shrek started to doubt, asking, maybe it would have been better if a human prince rescued Fiona? He said he really wanted Fiona to be happy and asked, since there's a chance, why shouldn't I change for her sake? Suddenly he remembered the fairy's business card. So he asked Donkey to cry, he needed a tear. When he didn't cry, the cat helped a little, stepped on him, Donkey's tear hit the card, and a bubble came out showing the way. The cat said, because you saved my life, I am obligated to follow you until I save yours. Donkey objected, but Shrek was charmed by the cat's cute face, told Donkey to try looking like that, and they set off together. Meanwhile, Fiona realized through that maid girl that Shrek had read her diary. Fiona went outside and asked her mother, "Did you see Shrek?" Her mother said she hadn't, adding, "Wow, look at that question." Then Fiona asked her father. He jumped around nervously and said he hadn't seen him. At one point, the king said to his daughter, "Look, this is what happens when he turns you into a monster forever," referring to old habits. Fiona declared, "Shrek loves me just the way I am." The king explained he was only thinking of his daughter's well-being and left. At that moment, elsewhere, the cat was patiently explaining something to Shrek. Donkey wouldn't shut up. Walking along, they reached the fairy's office. It was a regular big factory. The three opened the door. Shrek pulled the leg of the employee sitting at the entrance, meaning he lied to him, and they entered inside. Inside, busy work was underway. The three walked along the wall. The fairy was working there, seemingly making a love potion. Suddenly, the Shrek team appeared in front of her, and she was very shocked. When Shrek told her Fiona didn't seem happy with him, the fairy said let's see why, rummaged through various books, and repeated, "There are no ogres, monsters, here, nor here." At one point she said, "Ogre monsters are not written to have a happily ever after," and she and Shrek were about to fight. But an employee interrupted them, announcing that Shrek had decided to leave unexpectedly, so she thought they had left. Finding an employee's clothes, Shrek put the clothes on his head, disguise. He greeted everyone and entered a room. Donkey and the cat came out of that box. The room was full of potions. Shrek told Donkey, "Run over there, keep watch and tell me if anyone comes." The cat, under Shrek's order, climbed up and started looking for a potion that makes you beautiful. At one point, the cat found the potion called Happily Ever After. Then, because Donkey had opened the door too wide, they were spotted. The cat had to get the potion quickly. But the potion wouldn't fit through the gap, the glass cracked and broke, but somehow Donkey caught the falling potion. The alarm sounded, and the Shrek team managed to get out of the potion room. The elves shot at them with crossbows. The Shrek team ran, and a magical potion from a cauldron was spilled on them, the elves. The elves turned into ducks, pigeons, and the ducks turned into something else. The Shrek team escaped. Discovering this, the fairy was furious. Her son came to her. The mother told her son the ogre monster had come. The son acted tough, saying, "I'll kill him right now." "Where is he?" when a pigeon flew into him. A pigeon informed the fairy that the Happily Ever After potion was missing, and the fairy told her son they could use this to their advantage. Meanwhile, someone suggested testing the potion on themselves. When Shrek said, "If I die for you," Donkey got jealous, said, "No, I'm his friend," and drank the potion. It seemed to have no effect. Then Shrek drank it, his stomach rumbled, and he let out a toot. Then it started pouring rain, and after they left, a mushroom that was hit by the earlier mist turned into a rose. The Shrek team found a barn and went inside. At one point, Donkey had a seizure and collapsed. The poor guy was tired from traveling all day. But then Shrek collapsed too. At that moment in the palace, Fiona told her father that after thinking it over, she decided to correct her mistake. She said, "I'll find Shrek, we'll get in the carriage and return to our swamp." However, it was raining outside. Suddenly Fiona also fainted. A light shone in the barn. Light also radiated from the room where Fiona lay. In the morning, some girls woke Shrek up. Oh, he had turned into a handsome guy. Donkey had turned into a horse, stallion. The cat read from the potion bottle, for this effect to remain forever, the lovers must kiss before midnight. The girls came out saying, I'll be your lover, choose me. Shrek explained he had a love, shouted, Fiona, I'm coming for you, and left with hope. Then they decided to find normal clothes for Shrek and took clothes from a rich man. In the kingdom, people now looked at him differently. They reached the palace and asked for Fiona. Fiona woke up and was amazed to see she had turned into a human. Shrek yelled, Fiona, and ran into the palace. Hearing his voice, Fiona came outside. She was shocked to see Donkey turned into a horse. Fiona initially thought Shrek had turned into the cat. But Donkey explained everything to her, and Fiona went back into the palace to search. Shrek entered a room, and the fairy was there. She magically closed the door, keeping Shrek from leaving. Then Prince Charming appeared in front of Fiona and said, It's me, Shrek. When Fiona said his voice sounded different,